Welcome to Mission Ready Society. I'm your host, Oren Price, and in today's video, we are talking about basic land navigation skills, part 2. This is the second part of the basic land navigation video series that I have created. And in this part of the series, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the outdoor portion of land navigation, or the more like hands-on type of deal. So we're going to be talking about pace count. We're going to be talking about how to use a compass, the different parts of a compass, and all of those sort of things. In part 1, we talked about everything to do with the map itself and how to plot points and what different things on the map mean and all of that fun stuff. So if you haven't seen part 1, go check that out first. And yeah, this is part 2 of that series. We're out here in the woods. I do want to apologize if there's a little bit of background. I'm not super far from a road, but yeah, so without further ado, let's get into part 2 of this basic land navigation series. All right, so here we are out in the woods. And the first thing I want to talk about in today's video is pace count. This is something that is important to know when doing land nav, and something that you're going to want to do before you actually go out there and try and find your points or whatever location you're trying to get to. And now everybody's pace count is going to be different. And here's kind of why. So your pace count is determined by you walking 100 meters, and you're essentially going to count every time your left foot hits the ground. Now, people's strides are different. Some people's strides are shorter, some people's strides are longer. So that's why everybody's pace count is different. So it's good to know your pace count. And another thing you can do too is you can determine your pace count in snow. If you live in a snowy environment, you can determine your pace count for going up hills, and all of that fun stuff. But the one that you should know is flat ground, and you're just gonna measure out a distance of 100 meters, or you can measure out 50 meters and walk down and back, or you can do 25 meters and walk down and back twice. And that's basically it. This obviously is not an ideal location to determine a pace count, but luckily I already know my pace count. But basically a simple demonstration is just you're gonna start at wherever you determined your starting line is, and you're gonna walk to either your turnaround point or where your finish line is. So basically you're gonna step and you're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. And that is essentially all you're going to do until you reach that 100 meters. And now, whatever number is your last step when you reach that 100 meters is your pace count. So for instance, my pace count is 59. And it's 59 every time I go out and I measure it again. So far, it hasn't changed. That probably will not be the case later on in my future, but again, it's always good to measure it before you go out and you either you start a land nav course, or you do something regarding to land navigation. Now the reason we want to know our pace count is because when you're out there and you're shooting your azimuth, you're headed to your point, as we talked about in part 1 of this series, is one of the things you're going to do is you're going to find your distance. And now when you're out there, let's say our point, or where we need to go, is 200 meters this way, in this direction. So we'll get into it later about shooting azimuths with a compass and all that fun stuff, but we're going to say, okay, we need to go 200 meters in this direction. So all we're going to do is we're just going to go 1, 2, and we're going to count, and we're going to hit our pace count once, and then we're going to hit our pace count again, and that should be 200 meters. Now, when obviously we're only measuring 100 meters here, and now obviously a lot of the distances we're going to go are more than 100 meters. So how do we keep track of that? There is such thing as ranger beads. That's what a lot of people like to call them, and I'll put an image in of what those look like because I don't have any with me at the moment. Or actually I don't, no, I do have a set, but I don't have them with me. Or, you know, you can find some or other sort of method to keep track. You can hold stones in your hand. You can just hold out a finger every time you hit 100 meters, you know, whatever's going to help you kind of remember how far you've gone. And that's the whole reason behind it, is essentially you want a way to remember how far you've gone, because the last thing you want to do is say you have a 600 meter movement and, you know, you lose track of how far you've actually gone, and you think you've gone 500 meters, but you've actually only hit 300 or 400, and now you're off, you know. And you can see where that can spiral into a bad day. And that is essentially why. Now, ranger beads, what they are is essentially it's just a piece of paracord with some beads on it. And you have 9 beads on the lower portion, and I believe it's 4 or 5 on the upper. And essentially, every time you hit 100 meters, you just move one of those lower beads, and is to remind you that you've gone 100 meters and so forth. You know, 100, 200, 300, 400, and it goes all the way up to 900. And then once you hit 900 meters, essentially, you can reset all those, and you move one of those upper beads to show that you've gone 1,000 meters. And that's essentially how it works. So that is, you know, that's kind of why we determine our pace counts. And why we do all that is so we know how far we've gone, and so we can keep track of, just that, how far we've gone. And, you know, that's pretty much the basics of pace counts. There's not much to it. It's not super complicated. You just gotta get out there. You gotta figure out that pace count, because that's very important to know, because without that pace count, you're gonna have no idea of how far you've actually gone, and you're not gonna be able to find your point. So again, you're just going to measure out a distance of 100 meters or something that equals 100 meters, and you're going to walk that distance, and you're going to count every time your left foot hits the ground. And the reason we do every time our left foot hits the ground is because if we counted every single pace, that's going to be a lot more confusing than every time the left foot hits the ground. It's going to be a lot less numbers than if you were to count every single pace. And now it's always good to remember your pace count, maybe write it down somewhere. And again, you're just going to want to measure that every so often to make sure that it's the same. And again, you can determine your pace count in snow, on a hill, on flat ground, declining, whatever, you know, kind of terrain you might find yourself in. So like for me, I live in a mountainous region. As you can kind of see right here, this drops off pretty dang steep. So, you know, walking up something like this is probably something you're going to want to know your pace count if you live in an environment like I do. If you also live in an environment like I do where it snows, determining what your pace count is in some deep snow is also a good thing to know. But yeah, just being, you know, kind of cognizant of like the area you live in, and, you know, determining what you need to do for, you know, your pace count, or what pace counts you need to figure out. So that kind of concludes our pace count portion. And next, we're gonna talk about what we do when we come to an obstacle in our path. All right, so now we're gonna talk about what to do when we come across an obstacle in our path. And now, I don't really have a good kind of, you know, obstacle that's out here in front of me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tree, and we're going to use our imagination, and we're going to say that this tree is actually a massive boulder, right? The obstacle could be a boulder, it could be a swamp, essentially anything that's kind of preventing you from being able to just go in a straight line. Because when we're doing land navigation, we try our hardest to stay in a straight line, unless obviously we're using some sort of trail system. But depending on our circumstances, especially in a tactile environment, we might not be able to use trail systems. Whether we're trying to keep ourselves hidden, or there is no trails where we are operating in. So, so we always try and stay in as much of a straight line as possible. But sometimes we hit obstacles, or we hit something that prevents us from being able to go into that straight line. So we're going to say we're walking, and boom, we hit this massive obstacle here. And now maybe we're not at exactly 100 meters. So we'll say we're at 29 paces currently. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pick either right or we're going to pick left. Whichever way is going to allow us to get to where we can continue going forward. So in this instance, this is a massive drop off over this side. So what we're going to say is we're going to choose right. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn 90 degrees, remembering that we are currently at 29 paces where we're standing right now. And all we're going to do is we're going to count however many paces out it takes us to be able to get past that obstacle. So all we're going to do is go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, 4 paces and we're able to get past this obstacle. Obviously, it might be more, depending on how large the obstacle is, but it's the same idea. So we were at 29 paces there, and it took us 4 paces to get past the obstacle, or get to a point where we can get past the obstacle. And now what we can do is we can resume our pace count from those 29 paces. So now we're going to go 30, 31, 32. Okay, now we're at 32 paces, but we still went to the right 4. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn 90 degrees to our left, and we're just going to walk back 4 paces. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I might be a little off from where I was standing, but we've gone 4 paces back. So now we know that we're at 32 paces still, and now we should be back on that straight line that we were on before. So we were standing on that side of the obstacle, and now we're on this side, and we should still be in a straight line. And that is essentially how we get around an obstacle. Now, yes, it can get a little confusing trying to remember all the different numbers and not lose track of your pace count from back there, or how far you walked to the right or to the left, or how many more paces you took once you walked to the right or to the left. Now, if you're doing this in a team or with some sort of partner or teammate, an easy way to do this is one person stands in their location from where you first started. So let's say we start back here, and we're all right, we're at 29 paces here. Now what we're going to do is our teammate, we're going to stay at 29. Our teammate is going to walk out like we did before. They're going to count those paces. They're then going to count however many paces they go forward, and then they're going to walk back those paces. But an easy way to line ourselves up to make sure we're staying on straight is they're going to walk across, and obviously it's going to be want to be a spot where you can see them. So maybe we're crossing a river, so just on the other side of the river, on the other riverbank, or if it's some sort of boulder, maybe on top of the boulder somewhere where we can see them, or if it's kind of like a cliff type deal, you know. So now they're going to come over here. We're basically just going to point where we need them to be lined up, and they're going to line themselves up with that, and then they're going to know how many paces they've gone back, or that they've gone back the right amount of paces, and essentially they're just going to tell you how many paces they moved forward. So obviously it wouldn't be this number for this, but let's say we're at 29. They're like, all right, I went 15 paces forward. So all we're going to do is we're going to do some quick math here, and 29 plus 15 is 44. So now we know that where our teammate is standing is 44 paces. So now all we're going to do is we're just going to leave our spot, and we're going to mosey on over there, because we don't need to remember our pace count or keep track of our pace count, because they know how many paces we've gone from where they're standing. Well, let me rephrase. It is still a good idea to kind of keep pace, just as that backup. So yeah, always keep pace. But if you forget on your way across, it's not the end of the world again, because our teammate should know how many paces we have gone. And now that is essentially the gist of getting around an obstacle, some sort of natural obstacle that is. And again, the obstacle could be something as simple as a boulder in our way that we can't climb. It could be a swamp, it could be a stream, it could be a river. Again, anything that is essentially preventing us from being able to just go in a straight line. And now, obviously, some rivers and some streams you can just walk through. But if that stream or that river is above our head for some reason, then obviously you're probably not just going to want to jump in and go for it. Or especially if it's like wintertime, and it's freezing out. The last thing we want to do is walk through and get ourselves soaking wet, and now we have hypothermia, frostbite, all of that fun stuff, which is for a future video. But yeah, so that is essentially how we get around obstacles. So now the next topic that we're going to discuss in today's video is the different parts of the compass. All right, so unfortunately I'm filming this portion of the video the next day, because I realized that the compass was not actually in frame, so that's real fun. But so we're going to talk about the different parts of the compass itself, and your compass is divided into two separate portions. We have our cover and we have our base. Now, before I get too into depth here, I want to mention that this is a Kamanga compass, which is pretty standard within the military, and it's honestly probably the best compass that you can use for any sort of land navigation. This is a Linsatic compass, is the type of compass it is, and highly recommend getting one of these if you don't have one. They are a little pricey, but definitely well worth it. So, to start, I had kind of mentioned the cover and the base. So each half of this has kind of its own type of components. And first we're going to start with the cover. So on the cover, there's not much to it besides it actually being the covering portion of the compass itself. But on here we have this little wire here, and this is our sighting wire. So essentially what we use this wire for is to hold it up and line it up with an object that we're shooting our azimuth at, and then we walk to that object. Above and below that we have these two little tick marks here, and those actually illuminate when it's dark out, so you can see it during the night. And that's kind of all there is to the cover portion of this compass. Now moving on to the base down here, we have our bezel ring, which rotates, and that's because we have this other little tick mark down here that also illuminates. And what we can do with this is when we shoot our azimuth, we can turn this little ring to line this tick mark up with the tick mark on our north arrow, and then we know that when we line these up, that's our straight line that we're walking in. So what we can do when we're walking is we can just quickly kind of line those up to readjust ourselves and then continue on with our straight line. So that's kind of a helpful piece of information there. Now on here also we have this solid black line, and what we use this for is to line up our azimuth. So within the actual moving portion of the compass, we have these red numbers, and those numbers are our degrees, which correspond to our azimuth that we would have determined in part 1 of this series. Around that also we have black numbers, but we don't worry about those. Those are mils, and you're not going to be worrying about those when you're doing any sort of land navigation. And I kind of talked about it, but we have this arrow here, which is our north-seeking arrow. We have west labeled, we have east labeled, and obviously south is the opposite of north. All of those illuminate besides south, so again you can see those during the night when it is dark out. Now we have this little piece to the compass, and what this is used for is essentially what we can do is we can set our compass up so it kind of looks like this in this shape here, and it has this little notch here, and that is our sighting slot, and then this piece of glass here is called our sighting glass. And what we can use this for is when we set it up like this, we can look at the sighting glass, and we can, it's essentially a magnifying glass. I apologize, you can't really see it, but we can line up that black line that I showed you a little bit ago with our degrees and shoot our azimuth. Now, once we shoot our azimuth, looking through that sighting glass, we can look through that little slit on the top at the wire, and we can then line it up with an object off in the distance that we want to walk to. So that's kind of how we can do that and what that's used for. And then beyond that, we basically, you just have a piece of string here, piece of twine that you can tie it to, that way you don't lose it, and then you have this little loop here, which is just essentially a thumb loop, so you can hold it just like that. So that's kind of all of the different components to this lymphatic compass. On the side here is a straight edge as well that is measured out for a 1 in 50,000 scale, so you can use that to measure distance or any of those sort of things. This is pretty straightforward, but essentially, usually, so when I'm doing land nav, usually I don't actually set my compass up like this. I kind of just keep it open, and I'm like, I find my degrees with that black line and those red numbers, and then I just kind of hold it up and I look at that wire and find an object. So what we're going to do is we're going to find an object that's straightforward from our azimuth, and we're going to walk to that object, keeping track of our pace count. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then what we're going to do is we can do kind of like we talked about earlier about the obstacles and walk around it and keep track of our pace count here. So this is 10, 11, 12, and we walk back 1. And now essentially all we're going to do is we're going to shoot our azimuth again, and then we're going to find another object off in the distance that is straight ahead, and we're going to head to that. And that's essentially what you're going to do all the way to your point. And now the reason we do that is because if you don't, you have more of a chance of getting off of that straight line than if you were to pick an object that's, 20 meters, 30 meters off in the distance, and just kind of keep doing that pattern all the way to your location or your point. Because everybody kind of has a natural tendency to either veer off to the right or veer off to the left a little bit when we're walking in a distance. So if we're just walking in a straight line and we're not walking to any kind of known spot, then there's a good chance that we're either going to veer off to the right too far, or we're going to veer off to the left, and we're not going to be able to find our point. So that's why we find something off in the distance that we can keep track of and that's known, and we head to that and we keep our pace count, because that's going to help keep us on that straight line to the best of our ability. So again, you're just going to kind of want to pick a point off in the distance, and then you're just going to walk to that point. I wouldn't choose anything that's more than like between 30 to 50 meters, because again, the further you walk, the greater chance you have of getting off that path. But again, you're just going to want to make sure it's a point that's known or something that you can keep track of. That way, you can stay on that straight line to the best of your ability. But yeah, so I kind of demonstrated how to shoot an azimuth, and again, you're just going to want to line up that black line with whatever azimuth you determined from plotting your points, and that wherever that is a straight line and should go directly to your point if you keep walking. And again, you're going to want to find a known spot or an object off in the distance that you can keep track of and you can walk to, and then you're going to do your pace count to that object, and then you're going to shoot your azimuth again, find another object off in the distance, and walk to that. And you're going to do that all the way until you hit your point, or hopefully find your point, or find wherever you're headed to. And that's just kind of the process of land navigation. That's kind of the basics, and that's kind of all you have to do to get there. Again, keeping track if there's any obstacles or anything like that. But yeah, so now I kind of want to talk about what we call terrain association and what that is and kind of how to do it. All right, so now we're going to talk about terrain association. I also had to film this portion of the video the following day for the same reason, because my phone was not in frame. And bear with me, I have to use my phone for this because I don't have a printed map, and which is, you know, shame on me, because you could always should have a printed map. So we're going to use my phone today for this kind of demonstration here, and it is also raining, so we'll have to deal with that as well. But yeah, so terrain association is pretty much exactly what the name says. It is associating your terrain with where you are, essentially. And how we do that is getting to know the area that we're in really well, looking at our map beforehand and kind of studying it and understanding what certain things look like. But also what it really comes down to is when we're out there and when we are actually walking around and we're seeing the different components of what is out there in the land that we are traversing on. So when we look at this map here, I can zoom in here because it's on my phone, but this is a road and this is a power line and this is a building right here. I know based off of where I've walked and what I've seen that I know that this building is to my right from where I'm standing, and I know that that power line is also to my right from where I'm standing. This road here is directly behind me. So what I can determine is that this kind of steep change in elevation right here is kind of what I'm looking at directly in front of me here. And I apologize, I'm standing right in front of a tree. But we can see that I've reached a point where the terrain just kind of drops off like really steep. Because this is pretty steep change in elevation, which is easily kind of defined here. So when we're looking at this map, what we can see is that we have this road that is behind me, this power line to my right, building to my right, and then we have a steep drop off. So I know that what we can do too is we can orient the map kind of in the direction that we're standing, so we can kind of look at it upside down here. So this makes a little bit more sense now that it's upside down, and I apologize for the rain. And we can say, okay, so that is a steep drop off there. There's terrain that goes down to my left, and I haven't gone over there, and it's kind of flat up there. So we can kind of concur, and we can kind of say that where we're standing, there's probably a good chance that we're like right in this area somewhere. And that is essentially kind of how you terrain associate. There's not much else to it. It's just kind of knowing the like area that you're in and what you pass to get to the spot that you are now. But what it's good for is, let's say we have a point that's over here, right? And we're walking, and we've determined that if we're walking and we hit a steep change in elevation where it kind of, you know, goes down, we've gone too far. So now where we're standing, okay, we hit this steep change in elevation, which means that our point is behind us. So we know that we've gone too far. And what we can do is then we can determine that, okay, our point is obviously not over there because we know we've gone too far. So it must be back here somewhere. So that's kind of helpful for when you're trying to find different points, or if you're trying to find a location of some sort. And that's kind of what terrain association is really valuable for. So being able to use that skill and understand how to do it is super valuable. And again, it's essentially just, you know, kind of looking what's out there when you're actually out there and doing your thing, and studying your map to really know what it looks like. So that way you can associate your map with the actual terrain that you're standing on and be like, okay, that on the map correlates to where I am right now. And actually some people are really good at it, and they don't even like shoot azimuths. I know some people that don't shoot azimuths, they just terrain associate the whole time, and they can find their points because they're really good at being able to do that. So like you know, you can figure out, okay, there's a field there, I'm in a field, this is a tree line here, that's that tree line there, there's a power line there, I can see the power line, this is a steep drop off, okay, that's that steep drop off. So you can kind of really understand and start to get a good feel for where you actually are, just being able to understand like what the map is actually telling you when you're looking at it. So that is terrain association. All right, so we're in this spot here, and this is a nice big open power line area. And now we're going to talk about resections and intersections and kind of what those look like. So for a resection, what we're going to do is we're going to pick 2 points that are known and that we can find on a map. And now how we're going to, how we're going to do that is we're basically just going to look out into the distance, and we're going to find 2 spots. So from here, I kind of see this body of water over to my left, and over here to my right, we'll use maybe, I would say this field kind of, or this open area down here, but that might be a little confusing. We're going to say this little kind of mountaintop there is our known point, or a point that we can find. That's probably not the best location, but for the purpose of this demonstration, that's what we're going to use. So all we're going to do is from wherever we're standing, we're going to use our compass, and we're going to open this up all the way, and we're going to shoot an azimuth to that spot. So we're going to use our sighting wire, we're going to line it up with that, and then we're going to keep it straight, and we're going to look at our degrees, and we see that we are at 185 degrees to that body of water. So we remember 185. And now we're going to shoot to this one, and we're going to determine that that is 215 degrees. So 215 and 185. And now, like I demonstrated in part 1 of this series, you're going to find your back azimuth, you're going to pull out your map, you're going to plot that, you're going to do all that fun stuff, and then where those lines intersect is where we should be standing right now at this moment. But again, if you can terrain associate, you might be also able to determine, like, okay, there's a road right there, there's a power line here, this is a steep drop off, this is where I'm standing. So again, that's why terrain association is very valuable. And that's kind of what a resection looks like. Now an intersection is the same exact thing, but you might be on the other end of it, or you might be giving your information, your azimuths that you just shot, to your teammates. So that's it's the same thing, but that's essentially what a resection and an intersection looks like from that kind of first person aspect. But yeah, so that kind of concludes this basic land navigation series. And again, just a quick recap is our pace counts, wanting to know what our pace count is, determine what our different pace counts are, and remembering those and doing it every time we go out there. That way we can determine our distance and how far we've walked. And again, to determine that, we measure out 100 meters, and we count every time our left foot hits the ground until we reach those 100 meters, and that's our pace count. Now, when we're out there, we have our azimuth, we shoot our azimuth, we determine an object that is directly ahead of us, and that's what the object we want to head to. We walk using our pace count, counting our paces till we hit that object, remembering that, and then finding another object that's in a straight line directly in front of us, and then continuing that pace count all the way until we get to our point or our location. And now that is essentially, the gist of finding points, finding locations, land navigation. Yes, it can be a little complicated, but it's nothing too crazy. It's not rocket science. It's pretty straightforward. Just kind of learning all those basics should be able to get you to your points 9 times out of 10. And if you follow everything to a T, you should be able to get there, no problem. If you don't get there, no problem, then it's a user error, which just means that you need a little bit more practice, which is fine. But yeah, so again, terrain association, very valuable. Resections, that's kind of what they look like from first person. We have our different components on our cover of the compass and our base of the compass, and understanding how to use them is nice. And again, we can use this dash to our advantage to keep us in line. But overall, that's pretty much the basics of land navigation and how to plot, or how to get to a point, and how to find a location. So yeah, that concludes this little series that I have created for basic land navigation. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope that this was very valuable to you, and now you are able to go out and find points or find locations using these new or refreshed land navigation skills. This is a skill that's very important and that everybody should know, especially if you're trying to become a prepared individual, or if you're in the military. If you're in the military, they're going to make sure you know this regardless. So this could be a good video for you if you are kind of new to it all, or if you need to kind of, you know, sharpen your land navigation skills. So again, I hope that this was valuable to you. If you enjoyed this type of video or this little mini series, let me know down in the comments below, and or of any future kind of ideas that you have for some little mini series. But yeah, I look forward to making more of this content, and I hope that you guys appreciate these videos as much as I enjoy making them. And I do want to hint at something a little bit. Unfortunately, for the past little while, I haven't been able to make much firearm content, and actually I haven't been able to make many at all, but I will be making a lot more firearm content here in the near future, so stay tuned for that. I got some pretty exciting things planned, so yeah, so stay tuned for all of that. I'm looking forward to it because I love firearms, and I hope that you all love firearms too. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.